Hello, and welcome to Jake Reads Comics. As always, this show is brought to you by Astounding Tales. Astounding Tales issue 0 out now. Astounding Tales issue 1 is also out now. And recently we had the Kickstarter for Astounding Tales issue 2. That Kickstarter was successful, and the comic book is getting sent to the printer to get printed as we speak, and excited to start distributing that and all the merch. So this week's comic is Dr.Slump. I guess most people, if not everyone, checking out this video is probably aware that unfortunately Akira Toriyama has died recently. He's an amazing creator, amazing world builder, amazing artist, amazing draftsman. And also, besides his most well-known work, Dragon Ball, and in America, Dragon Ball Z, he's done a number of other projects. One of them, Dr. Slump. Dr. Slump was his first big hit. This was the manga he did, or the comic he did right before Dragon Ball. So this premiered in 1980. It's a massive hit. Went until 1984. Basically, he wanted to conclude this. His editors would not allow him to conclude Dr. Slump till he had something else that the fans were very excited about, and that was Dragon Ball. So basically this concluded, then Dragon Ball started up, and as we know, the rest is history. The other thing I want to note about this, besides celebrating Akira Toriyama and Dr. Slump, is the Tankobon format. I think one of the things in terms of Western comics, well, in terms of the sale of Western comics, I think distribution is a huge thing. Ease of access. You know, comics were something that used to be found on the newsstand, at the drugstore, very easy to find, frankly. Cheap, disposable forms of entertainment. Now comics are kind of, for the content you get, they're kind of at a higher price point. They have a very slim profit margin for the retailer, so having them at a store that's not a comic specialty store, let's say at your neighborhood, gas station, smoke shop, what have you, they take up a lot of space and have a relatively low price point and a slim profit margin. So they're really not something that retailers are in a rush to carry. So I think really the Tankobon format is kind of the future, or the future is now, because in terms of price points, this one is from '08 and it was $8. I think now you could probably, with this much story, over 100 pages of story, you could probably get into a $10, $12 price point. So I think that's the kind of the key, is to get a price point that, one, the customer is comfortable paying. You're getting to a good value. So you're with Western comics, you're at a $5 price point with like 17 pages of content. Where if you could somehow find a way, in terms of the following something similar to a Tankobon format, where you're paying a double the price point, but you're getting much more story. Obviously, we see trade paperbacks in Western comics becoming very popular, probably more popular in some cases than the single issues. So I think that's kind of, and the price point of a trade paperback omnibus is basically what you're getting into that $10, $12 price point. It also allows bookstores to carry it. So in terms of distribution, obviously I would like comic books to be as accessible as possible. But right now, in terms of comic book stores not being very accessible to much of the general public, having comic books in bookstores allows it. It does allow for more ease of access, but bookstores really won't carry very much product below that $10, $12 price point. So that $5 price point for, let's say, your Action Comics, your Uncanny X-Men, whatever, Fantastic Four, Marvel, DC, Image type big two comics, at that $5 price point, they're not really looking to carry. They do have periodicals in bookstores, but it's not something they're really they're jumping out of their seats to carry. But once you get into that $10, $12, $15 price point, bookstores are much more open to carrying your publication. Now it's just a question of giving the consumer a product where that's a good value. And I think the Takoban is kind of that perfect mix of it's at a price point that bookstores will carry, but in terms of value, even though you're at a higher price point than your average issue of Marvel or DC Comics, it's a much better value for your money. You're getting a lot more story. So I digress. Back to Dr. Slump. This is volume 16, and really I'm not going to do much of the story of 16. I really love these kind of. It's not even a prologue. It's just some extra. It's just some extra content for the trade that I think is kind of really wonderful and whimsical. So it starts off with a few sentences from the man himself, Akira Toriyama. I recently realized that Dr. Senbei Norikami makes his only cover appearance in Volume 2, and he's pretty small at that. It's sad, seeing how he's supposed to be the main character. It's so sad, in fact, that I drew him extra big for this cover. Aren't I a nice author? Although, I have to admit, I'm worried people will look at this in the store and wonder, what manga is that? That's from Akira Toriyama in 1985. So one of the things that's really nice about this cover is it captures that kind of chibi, cutesy style he was rolling with and known for during that Dragon Ball era and, of course, in Dr. Slump. But you also see it's the combination of that. He's an excellent draftsman, and he's capturing that kind of cutesy, chibi style. I think one of the mistakes that sometimes Western artists make, especially younger artists or high school kids, middle school kids trying to emulate this style, is they don't recognize that you really do need solid fundamentals. You're not just straight drawing kind of abstract characters without any connection to reality. To be able to draw like this, you still need to have a good understanding of the human form, kind of where everything, the nose, mouth, where everything is supposed to be in the face, and kind of you need to. It's almost in like writing. You need to know the rules before you break the rules, type of deal. So you need to have good anatomy or know good anatomy before you can kind of draw this kind of abstract, exaggerated kind of anatomy. But even though it's titled Dr. Slump, it's not about Dr. Slump. It's about Arale, I believe Arale is how you pronounce it. She's the protagonist and is definitely kind of she shares some qualities with Goku. She, as we know from Dragon Ball, she can fly the flying Nimbus as well. She's pure of heart. So now into Volume 16 of Dr. Slump. So again, it's this extra material, page 6, questions that demand answers. And you can see here, you're 180 something pages of content. The content starts at page 6, and our last story is at page 190. So commercial break. Yes, copy that. The manga is what? Over as of volume 18, so I have to buy 2 more volumes? Roger that, over and out. So again, we kind of have this kind of cutesy chibi style. I guess it's a fox dressed up as a World War II era soldier, but we can see the detail on kind of his gear, his little radio, his rifle, and I can't say that enough. That's kind of what really attracts me to Akira Toriyama's style, especially in this era, is kind of the cartoony mixed with the realism. The abstract or exaggerated mixed with the realism, the detail. So we have Akira Toriyama and his assistant. And this is how he's often drawn when he draws himself. So he has some questions for Dr. Senbei. He's our Dr. Slump. Let's start with one, shall we? What does Dr. Senbei do for money? That's a good question. He's always home. Let's go ask. Well, sir, I saw Lucy. Oh, she smelled poopy, yeah. Who told you to sing? You ever want to see the manga page again? Right. In the week between each issue of Shonen Jump, I sell my inventions. inventions, get your inventions, oh, over here. So even though we kind of have talking heads in the beginning of this page, it's still very exciting. The characters are kind of animated. There's action. The pages are interesting. They're interesting angles. So even talking heads are kind of fun in Akira Toriyama comics. So we continue on with kind of breaking the fourth wall, kind of this whole meta thing going on with Akira Toriyama interviewing his characters. This is great. This reminds me of kind of when Jack Kirby does the cutaways of the Baxter Building. And then later on, I believe John Byrne does kind of a similar thing. So as I've said previously, one of the things I love about Akira Toriyama is his world building. So it's kind of an example of that world of Dr. Slump. And also this cool kind of meta little extra content in the beginning of this Takoban. We see kind of the different robots because obviously he built Arale, our protagonist. She's a super strong robot. So also Dr. Slump, if you're a fan of Astounding Tales, where we have a tween girl with a prosthetic cybernetic body who is also super strong, and she's also good-natured and pure of heart. Dr. Slump, there's a Venn diagram crossover definitely with Dr. Slump and Astounding Tales. And we kind of see kind of cool action going on. Another depiction of Akira Toriyama, his assistant pointing that out. This is really great, and another kind of great meta gag. People more familiar with Dragon Ball Z and not as much with Dragon Ball or Dr. Slump may not realize that Akira Toriyama is a great humor and gag manga or comic creator. And then people also fans of Dragon Ball Z will definitely get a kick out of this meta joke. Toriyama has previously drawn himself. He had a wind-up key in his back, but now he doesn't. So sometimes, with Akira Toriyama's world building and his storytelling, I like to use the analogy. I've heard George R.R. Martin say, there's some writers or creators that are architects and there are others that are gardeners. Architect is everything is kind of pre-planned out and they know where everything's going to go, and gardeners kind of fly by the seat of their pants and let the story grow organically. So Akira Toriyama is definitely a gardener with his stories and world building, but that also means sometimes he forgets things. And also, especially with Dragon Ball, it's run for so many issues, he sometimes forgets things. So this is kind of a fun joke and example of that hey, you used to have a key, now you don't. And of course he gives kind of a retcon kind of meta response of now he's battery operated instead of having to turn up a wind-up key. So I think anyone who's a fan of stories with long continuities, ongoing stories, serialized stories, can kind of get a chuckle out of this, of trying to retroactively fit on an explanation on something that was frankly just an error. Kind of like, why was the Hulk gray early on and then a few issues later he's green? Or why does Spock smile in the pilot of Star Trek? So keep on going, kind of see the different inventions of he's not Dr. Slump, but Dr. Senbei is Dr. Slump. He's the guy the book is titled after, but he's not called Dr. Slump. But he's a genius inventor, kind of. He's I don't know if savant is necessarily the right word, but he's not. He's kind of rough around the edges. You never really. You see a lot of his inventions, but he doesn't really display that much genius. He's got his Kid Turbo. Similar to the Dragon Ball, we have a lot of different genres and different characters from those different types of genres. We got kind of like fairy dudes that or I don't know if they're dudes, they're kind of androgynous, I believe. I don't think they're ever gendered, but kind of magical fairy people. We have aliens, time travel, different types of shrink rays, reverse rays, this reverse time. Um, and there's Arale rather, our protagonist. But kind of you see all this is just extra. You see, it's how prolific Toriyama is. This is just kind of some extra fun kind of gags before the comic starts, before the Takobon starts, and then this car is just an example of the wonderful art and detail Toriyama can do. Especially, he might have a little more time to produce this image than mangas on a weekly schedule, so as opposed to Western comics where you're doing they're produced and distributed monthly. Manga like Dr.Slump and Dragon Ball's on a weekly basis. So kind of this mixing with this kind of more abstract, cutesy style, cartoony style, with this amazingly detailed, great, and the amazing rendering on the vehicle, and that starts this this coffee tea or me is the start of this volume of Dr. Slump. So I highly recommend Dr. Slump. I also recommend Sandland, which is available, and that's a little more contained. It's just one volume. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, if you're a Dr. Slump fan, and you haven't read Sandland yet, I highly recommend that. That'll probably be a future video as well. And so that's been this week's episode of Jake Reads Comics. Please like and subscribe. It helps support this channel. And also, the best way to support this channel is, of course, supporting Astounding Tales, the comic created by Ray Griffith and I. Ray Griffith is the amazing artist behind Astounding Tales. I, Jake Cohen, am your humble scribe. Together, we collaborate to make these comics that we're pretty proud of, and Ray's art is definitely awesome. So you want to check that out. Issue 0 and Issue 1 out now. And I hope everyone has a terrific week.